Man, I'm super fired up for our guest today. Today we have Darren Jacklin. Darren Jacklin is an eXp board of director, but more important, this guy is like a super well-versed entrepreneur. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Darren, but like doing research on you, you've worked with over 150 plus Fortune 500 companies. So you've
Yeah,
worked with some
150,
of the most
157.
successful
Yep.
157, some of the most successful executives. Some of the things as well that you've done in your career. I mean, one of the things you have apparently an eye for is uncovering hidden assets, overlooked opportunities, undervalued possibilities. You've been on the board of directors with eXp since 2013. Is that correct?
Yep. For 10 years, served on the board. Absolutely. Yep.
10
Yep.
years.
It was the first
So,
when we were a startup. We were a little startup residential real estate company. Had no money, building airplanes, we were flying it, and took that from a startup as a team and built it into a multi-billion-dollar company that's now globally in 24 countries. Yeah.
that's insane. So I'm excited. We're going to touch on that in this. Like, buckle up, everybody. I want to take you on a bit of a journey, but you have a very fascinating history. And I was reading it. So first off, maybe tell us about your story. You were born and raised in Saskatchewan, Canada.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so I was born in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Grew up in a city called Swift Current, Saskatchewan. Big hockey city. A lot of very well-known hockey players came out of there and played all over North America. Failed grade one of public school, was misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability. And then it was determined by the school district to put me into what we call special ed or special education. So from grade one all the way through to grade 12, I was in a public school, but in special education. So I was in the short, a small classroom with just a small group of kids. And when I was 7 years of age, I created my first business called Rent a Kid. And I'd go out and cut grass, shovel snow, deliver newspapers, the Regina Leader Post newspaper. And I was just looking for ways to solve problems and serve my community, my neighborhood, by knocking on doors. And by the time I was 9 years of age, I hired my two best friends with my Rent a Kid business. And we went out and did all these kind of odd jobs. I'm 51 years of age today, and I'm still great friends with those two friends from age 9. In fact, I just had a conversation with them both recently, and still keep in touch with them a few times a year. And so I went through junior high school, struggled academically, no direction, no focus, very insecure, very low self-confidence, and then got into high school, got into grade 11, taken out a class one day by a guidance counselor and a school teacher. They sat me down in the guidance counselor's office and said, Darren, if you graduate from grade 12, what do you plan to do with your life? And I said, I want to travel the world, want to make a lot of money, have a lot of fun, and make a big difference. And it was never about the money, about making a lot of money. I wanted options and choices because in my life growing up, I was always told what to do. And I wanted to be in a stage and age and position in my life where I don't get told what to do. I can call the shots, I can make the decisions, and just have that choice and that freedom in my life. I was chasing freedom. So I did graduate from high school as a D student, grade point average about 54%. They just kind of moved me through the system because, the desks are only so big and you keep growing, right? And so I struggled after I graduated from high school in 1991. I, did multiple suicide attempts. So I moved from Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada to Vernon, British Columbia, where I'm actually today. I have a bunch of property, real estate. So I'm actually at one of my properties here in Vernon, British Columbia, Canada today. And, so I did multiple suicide attempts to end my life by driving my car at 140 kilometers an hour, 85 miles an hour towards a telephone pole just outside of Vernon here. And on my final attempt, I thought, I just can't do this. I got really scared. I drove into this place called the People Place here in Vernon, British Columbia, Canada. And then a nonprofit organization there was a 24-hour telephone crisis line. And I rang the door buzzer, turned myself in, and they started offering me counseling. This is back in the 1990s. And then one of the counselors said, hey, I want to introduce you to Dale Carnegie. I didn't know who Dale Carnegie was. Okay, I'm going to get a mentor, positive role model. So I went to the Prestige Inn Hotel here in Vernon, British Columbia. And so I live between Vancouver and Vernon. I'm back and forth between both cities as my primary residence. And I went to the hotel, and I'm walking around the hotel lobby, and one of the hotel staff said, you're looking for somebody? You look a little confused, a little lost. So I'm looking for Dale Carnegie. He's upstairs in the conference center of the hotel. So I went up there, and here's this Dale Carnegie training program, a 12-week introduction to a training development program. So I didn't know anything about it. So I went in the room, a little weird, thinking, okay, I thought I was going to meet a guy one-on-one, not in a whole group of people. And the guy's passed away and created this legacy program. So I ended up signing up for the program, taking that program, which transformed and changed my life, the Dale Carnegie training program, and one of his books called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Then from there, I got introduced to Toastmasters International. And I went as a guest, got up as a guest the first night in Toastmasters. At the end of the Toastmasters meeting, they asked all the guests to introduce themselves. We all had name tags on. And I stood up. I was so scared, terrified, public speaking, I forgot my name. And that was my introduction to public speaking and Toastmasters. And those two organizations had a huge, profound difference in my life. I was in Toastmasters for 11 years, did the Dale Carnegie program, 12-week program, did some other programs as well over the years, read through all the books. It was just an incredible experience. And so from there, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this is like, that's incredible. How did they get that so wrong with you? I mean, you were in special needs classes, like your teachers thought you're going to amount to absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And here you are, exponentially wealthy, have built, you're part of building a multi-billion dollar company. You've helped 158 Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
What do you think happened there? Like, how did they drop the ball?
I was a kid who was very curious. I was always, you'll hear my dog barking in the background. I was always asking questions, very curious, but I'm a very practical, very results-oriented person. I don't like to sit still and just learn and regurgitate information. I like to, if I go to a workshop or a seminar or listen to a podcast, I want to learn from that person. And I want to write things down and take actual steps. And then the next time somebody meets me, it's like, okay, what did you learn? And I want to tell you what I produced in terms of results. And so I was very bored as a kid in school. I was daydreaming. I was very bored. I was more excited about my rent-a-kid business and about solving problems and serving people and being paid for as a fair means of exchange. And I like doing that. I got great joy and fulfillment of that. School was a waste of my time and boring to me as a kid. I was so bored. And so they even put me on a drug called Ritalin for a few years, right? Just to get me to conform and to focus and some of that. And I'm thinking, this is not my value system. This is not a high priority in my life. It's very auditory learning. I'm a very visual learner. I like to see things. And so it's all being done auditory to me, and I was born. And so it's really interesting today how things come full circle in my life, because I had a huge resentment towards school teachers. I had a lot of childhood trauma around school teachers growing up. And I had to go get some therapy and coaching and counseling over the years on childhood trauma around teachers because I got triggered, right? Because being told what to do and stuff. And it was really interesting that today in my relationship, I'm with a woman who was a high school teacher for 35 years with 3 academic degrees from the top universities in Canada. And we've built an empire together. We have an international foundation. We build schools all over the world. We have a real estate portfolio over North America. So I play the role of the visionary and she plays the role of the integrator, and I'm very blessed and grateful to have her in my life. But it's really interesting how when we met back in 2016 in a training development course for 7 months, a leadership course in downtown Vancouver, I had no interest in ever being involved in a relationship with a school teacher. So it's interesting how sometimes our voids in life create our value system.
That's incredible. I relate to a lot of the things that you're saying. I remember in school myself sitting there daydreaming, bored. Like this is just, it didn't cater to my personality type.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you asked me to participate, if we were doing group projects, I did incredibly well in those scenarios. I'd get A's on that. But if it was just sitting there listening, I was lucky to coast with C's. To be honest with you, I can totally relate. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about like my life and the things that I want to accomplish. Can I ask you this? And I'm just genuinely curious. Did you always believe inside of you that like you were capable of something great? You just didn't know like how to do it, but like, did you have that self-belief? Because I remember even at a young age, I'm like, I know I'm designed to be a leader. Sure. And I went through the self-esteem struggles, all the things as well, like high school, but like I always believed inside of me, I was a leader and I was capable of greatness. And it wasn't until some adversities later in my life that happened that allowed me to have what I called post-traumatic growth, where I channeled the things that happened to me and I used it to fuel me to get there. But I'm curious, did you have that? And if so, tell me more about it. Because I love talking to people that are
always knew I was different than the rest of the kids. But what I realized when I was knocking on doors, right, selling my rent-a-kid business, signing up people to deliver newspapers, right, for a subscription, I knew that at a very young age, I realized, because I saw the world differently being in special education, because I had people with Down syndrome and mental retardation and some of that were my classmates, right? So I saw kids get triggered, get upset, get angry, all these things differently than normal kids, because I was in a specialized classroom, right? And what I realized was that as human beings, all we are is a network of conversations. We're a network of conversations, and everything we want comes from knocking on that door and building rapport so they get to know me and like me and trust me. So I always knew I was different. And then I realized at a very young age through trauma, right, that, oh my gosh, if I ever want something, if I want to make more money, just go serve more people, solve more problems, go knock on more doors, go have more conversations. So I just knew in my life it was like a numbers game. So I thought, man, if I just, because I thought I saw my success as my rent-a-kid business. Like, remember, I was like 9, 10 years old, sometimes making more money in a month than my school teachers. Now, I didn't have overhead expenses like teachers do because I was a kid living at home with my parents. But I'm thinking to myself, man, by the time I was 16 years old, I had like almost $20,000 in cash saved up. I paid for my first car in cash, right? And all these things. And it was all done legally and integrity-wise, stuff like that, as a fair means of exchange. So I always knew it was different. I just thought, why? So as a kid growing to school, I think to myself, okay, I'm never going to go to college, university. Why would I do that? Why would I want to incur that risk of having student loan debts and spend the next 5 to 10 years paying it off? Why don't I just hire those smart kids? That's what I'm doing my rent-a-kid business. I'm just staying in my lane, and whatever I'm good at, I do good at. Whatever I don't do good at, I find someone else to do that and go in their lane. They stay in their lane. So as I grew up, I thought to myself, why would I ever go to college, university? I just hire people, and then they can come to work with me. They take all that risk. And then I have a retention model in place of attraction retention because now they've got to pay their debts off. So there's a long-term retention model with me for them to stay with me because they don't want to keep shopping around for opportunities because that's inconsistent. And then what's going to happen is they're not going to maybe pay their bills on time and pay off their student loan debts. So I just saw the world differently from being in special education and being out there in my community knocking on doors. But I always knew I'd use something. It was interesting because people always ask me, they go, what age would you become a millionaire? I didn't make my first million until I was in my early 40s, right? And it's a fascinating story. When I become a millionaire, what happened to me? I can share that if you want, how I got really exposed and embarrassed by a mentor of mine. But if I would have been motivated by money, because I gave a lot of money away throughout my life. I was the ATM, I was the co-signer, all that stuff, and I made some mistakes. I got my car repossessed. I was on welfare for a period of time. I was homeless, living on the streets. I used to have an R9 credit rating. So if you look at TransUnion Credit and Equifax, I had the worst metric score for TransUnion Credit or Equifax in all of North America. It was an R9 credit rating, and it's a worst case scenario. And so I turned that from an R9 to becoming a multimillionaire, right? And so I say when people tell me, oh my gosh, like, I'm struggling financially. I'm like, listen, you're not broke. Like, trust me, you're not broke. You had a lot more money and stuff than when I used to make 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week to build my corporate training business. So I got a job as a telemarketer back in the early 1990s. And I was telemarketing across Canada between 5 and 9 p.m. Monday to Friday selling Maclean's magazine. So I sold Maclean's magazine, Chatelaine, Flair, and Equinox magazine. And what happened was after 7 months, I was the number one telemarketer in Canada for this company that had contracts with Maclean's magazine. My boss, Glenn, came to me one day and he said, Darren, listen, you can't make any more phone calls and go any further here. You're the highest on the pay scale. We've given you all the bonuses. You've won all the awards. I said, well, Glenn, what do I do? He goes, you need to give your 2 weeks notice and go out. And I think with this public speaking thing with Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters that you're really accelerating at, right? I think that you should create a corporate training business. I said, well, how do I do that? He goes, go to the phone mart and get a stack of telephone books and just go from A to Z and start dialing for dollars, start calling all these companies. So I grabbed a stack of telephone books back in the 1990s, cold calling with a 98% rejection rate. And I was making 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week. And so I meet with real estate agents and mortgage brokers today and entrepreneurs and I was like, man, I'm struggling. How many telephone calls did you make this week? How many connections and contacts and conversations were you in this week? I 11. 11? Man, I would do that. I was making 400 cold calls in a day, right? 2,000 cold calls a week. And I did it for 5 years straight. Sometimes I was 3, 4, 5 months behind on paying my bills. Collection agencies, creditors calling me, people showing up at my doorstep looking for money. But I just kept on recommitting, repromising because I was up and down and inconsistent financially. A lot of stress, a lot of adversity, a lot of failures. So I know what it's like to be financially under a lot of pressure, right? And because I was strictly 100% commission based. I only, if I didn't get book a corporate training seminar to go and do corporate training, I didn't get paid, right? And so, and some of these things I was setting up months in advance in my schedule because corporations were booking things months, year in advance, sometimes 18 months in advance. And so I always had cash flow problems of in and out, racking up my credit cards, maxing out my credit cards all the time until I was 38 years of age. And one day I got so disgusted with myself, Jason, I said, enough is enough. I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I'm tired of being stressed out. I'm tired of being up and down. I'm tired of making, several, 40, 50, $70,000 a month. And 2 weeks later, I'm borrowing money from my friends. I'm tired of, making six figures, but I'm freaking broke. And I'm buying liabilities, not income producing assets. So at 38 years of age, I made a decision. I said, I want to study financial independence. I want to get wealthy, and I want freedom in my life, and I want to live life on my own terms. I want to be able to wake up when I'm done sleeping. I want to go to bed when people always say, what time do you go to bed at night? I say, I go to bed when I'm tired. They go, what time do you wake up? I said, when I'm done sleeping. People say, how do you do that? I say, consistently. So I wanted to be able to have that freedom in my life. And so I started my first investment I ever did, because I did some investment when I was a teenager and a young kid that my dad helped me with. But my first investment was, I met with some people. It was a mortgage company. And they came to me and I said, well, what's the minimum investment? And they go, well, it's $100,000. I don't even know anybody that has $100,000 liquid cash. I don't travel in those circles. I don't have those friends. And so the guy said, well, how much you got? And I said, well, I could probably do a few $100s. He goes, no, it's not worth our time to even do the paperwork. So I said, well, who's your wife? He goes, what do you mean? I said, who's your wife? I want to meet your wife. So I went and met with his wife and said, listen, I need a chance. I need to win. I need a shot at this. I said, I can't lose this $300 Canadian, because if I lose it, this is like my rent money. Like this is all I got. But I want a chance at this. And here's the key thing. It was not about, so I started $300 into this investment. They actually let me in, and I put $300 cash, quarterly dividend. So you don't get much on $300 at 7% interest, all right, annual return. But the thing is that every quarter they mailed me a statement, a report in the mail of my dividend, which on $300, as you know, at 7% annual return was not much, right? But the point was, it was the habit of consistency that was created. It was the belief, the psychology that, oh my gosh, I'm now an investor. I got $300 into a mortgage company. I'm an investor. And I taught that, and I put thousands of dollars into it over time. And I just exited here just before COVID with that investment. And now I'm into multiple things, right? With real estate and car washes and all kinds of stuff I'm involved with. But, and even businesses. We're buying accounting and bookkeeping firms and rolling them up right now. And my partner and I are building this to a $50 million company that we're going to exit to one of the big 4 accounting firms and go through another liquidity event. So all I'm doing is I'm basically kind of doing what I did when I was a kid with my rent-a-kid business. Now I'm just doing it on a bigger scale. But what I learned was, when I was a kid, I built teams of people, because like I have over 7,000 written goals for my life right now. But I realized when I share with that, people are like, 7,000 goals. How are you going to achieve all those goals in your lifetime? Here's the key thing. And I talk about this in my book, Until I Become. Most of my goals and dreams do not require my actions. Most of my goals and dreams do not require my actions, Jason. It's all about creating teams of people and teamwork. And today with technology, with apps and different websites and artificial intelligence, virtual assistants, right? Apprenticeship programs, work experience programs, volunteers. There's so many different ways that while you're sleeping in bed at night, you can have other people around the world, whether it's technology, whether it's an app, whether it's AI, whether it's a human being, working on your goals and dreams while you're sleeping in real time around the world. So so you can set all the goals you want and then create structures and systems and processes by planning that out with yourself or getting somebody else around you to help plan it out, the structure, systems, and process, and you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish in 12 months. It's unbelievable. What I used to do when I was growing up in 5-10 years, I now do in 6 to 12 months. Like, it's just incredible, the productivity and the results from that.
Okay, so there's some key things for people listening right now that I want you to pick up from Darren, okay? So number one, your network is your net worth. You're a clear indication of that, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be great at a lot of things. In fact, it sounds like you're really good at being a connector. That was like the thing that you did really well, is you connected people.
Yes.
Okay. This is stuff I teach people all the time. I'm telling people, I'm like, listen, I'm not that smart, but I'm really good at my one thing and I do it exceptionally well. And I like literally go deep with that. And I agree with you, not to your extent though. I mean, it sounds like you have some automations that I need to talk to you further about, but solve more problems.
That's right.
The bigger the problems are, the more money you can make.
Absolutely.
Right? So you started solving small problems.
You got a lot of dental, you don't take care of your teeth, and all of a sudden you got aches and pains in your mouth, you're going to pay a lot more in your dental bill, right?
Yeah, 100%. What I love too,
yeah, go ahead.
You didn't accept the labels that were put on you either.
No.
You did not accept the labels that were put on you. You were like, no. And when somebody said no to you, you said, I'm going to speak to your wife. You went and spoke to his wife, probably tugged on her heartstrings.
Yes, I did.
So that she went home and said, honey, you got to give this kid a chance.
Yep.
Right? And got that investment.
Yep.
I love that. That right there, guys, if you take anything away from today too, is understand that no doesn't mean no. And so like, I'm talking in a business sense. When somebody closes a door on you or says, no, that's not possible, just means that you need to think of a different angle.
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I love this. Okay, so now you're 38 years old. You've been through all up and down to the point where you almost quit
Homeless,
your life,
broke,
homeless.
living on the streets, my next door a garbage dumpster, collection these creditors, behind on my taxes, totally out of integrity. I don't know where next my dollar's going to come from, living in a first world country.
And now you're 38 years old and you're like, okay, I'm going to really get this together. I'm going to start investing in myself. So walk us through the journey from
Sure.
that to how you became a multimillionaire.
Yeah. So I'm still traveling, doing corporate training seminars, traveling 276 days a year. I did corporate training for 25 years, from 1995 to 2015. The first 10 years of my corporate training career, I wore the same high school graduation suit that I graduated from high school on in 1991. Same suit for 10 years straight. Same suit, different audience every day, but the same suit. Because that's all I had for financial. I was making $200 a day doing corporate training seminars and just reinvesting financially back into myself. And then what I realized was that getting around other people, that proximity is power. Proximity is power. And what I wanted to do is two key things. Number one is get around more successful people myself for two reasons. One is be in the conversation. So get in the conversation. Number two is get a seat at the table. Right? So it's in the room, in the opportunity, in the room, in the deal. So if I went to a charity event, a fundraising event, a private country club, a private group of people to get together in the VIP section of a concert, a seminar, a workshop, right? The VIP lounge at a trade show, whatever's going on. If I can get access to those people, business class, first class of a commercial airline, the business lounges at the airports, okay? If I can get just in that room and be in proximity to people, for many years in Vancouver, I would go to the Vancouver International Airport, the Fairmont Hotel there, and I would sit in the lobby of the Fairmont Hotel, Four Seasons hotels, Ritz-Carlton hotels, and as I was traveling, and I'd be staying at the Holiday Inn or the Ramada hotels or the Best Western hotels, and I'd find a way to get to the nicest hotels in that city because that's where the money is, that's where the opportunities are, and that's where the decision makers are. So even to this day, if you see me traveling, I will always be around the most successful. I'll give an example. I go every quarter to Florida. I'm part of a private mastermind group, and we do the event at the Westin Hotel, and right across the street is a Ritz-Carlton. So I've been over there multiple times to try and get the same rate as they pay at the Westin, but they won't honor it because I'm paying $300 a night. They're charging $1,200 a night. But guess where I go every morning? I go for a walk or run. I go through the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. When I make my phone calls and I'm doing my stuff on my laptop, I'm in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel because here's the key thing. I want to be in that energy. I want to be in that abundance and prosperity and affluence and inspiring environment that multiplies and expands my energy. So even when I'm not succeeding, I feel like I'm failing and I'm having a tough, challenging time, I need to reset and refocus and re-energize. I go to an inspiring environment. Right? So when I was growing up, man, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. So what I do, I go to the public library. Just walking into the public library, I feel smarter. Walk by a law firm office. If I want to feel like I want to have more prosperity and abundance financially, I'd walk by a bunch of financial services companies, right? Or get around intelligence financial planners or lawyers that I thought, oh my gosh, I'm smarter. I'm around these intelligence people. So I'm always creating my environment to so I feel more prosperous and abundance in my life.
That's a cheat code to life, guys. I grew up super middle class. The people that I hung out with were very middle class minded, exchange time for money. I wasn't around wealth. Yeah. In order for me to get to the level that I got to, I had to change some of the rooms that I was in. I had to go and sit with people that were doing that, be in proximity and be around it. And it's funny because a friend of mine she works actually in a drug and addiction clinic, right? So that's what she does. She basically helps people with rehab. And she said there's an incredibly high success rate when people are in rehab. Yeah. She said, but the relapse rate is really high because most of them end up going back to the same environment that got them there in the first place. She said, if you can change the environment that they go back to, which is a positive environment that's constructive to them staying sober, they end up actually having a very high success rate. Well, you think about people, right? If you're not around the successful, uplifting type people that you want to become, you're literally going to become your environment. So what you're doing is you are programming your thoughts and your actions and everything to behave like a person that you weren't yet. Yes. But that's the first thing, right? You have to believe that you're that person first, put the actions behind it, and then Sounds like you just needed to give it some time. So, all right. So here you are. You're going out, hanging out in these places, putting yourself in proximity. What was the breakthrough? Like, how did it finally start just really hitting for you?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So like with eXp Realty, for example. So here I am in 2011. I'm flying from San Francisco to New York City on United Airlines. I journal every day of my life. I always have a journal with me, right? And I'm writing down goals and dreams that I want to do. And I'm just expanding my mindset of what I want to do. And I'm writing down in my journal on my flight that I want to get onto paid advisory boards and paid boards of directors of public and private companies. And so then I made a list in my journal of all the people that I know in my network that I've ever had conversations with that serve, whether it's a volunteer through their church, through a nonprofit, through a school, through a charity, or it's a paid advisor or paid board of directors, of all the people I know. So I spent the next few months calling all these people all over North America, asking them how they got into this board of directors, how they got into this advisory board. Then I said to them, I said, great, thank you so much for your feedback. I really appreciate this. And they go, great. I said, I want to get onto paid advisory boards, paid board of directors. And the reason why I want to get paid, because then there's a different value that when somebody's putting some financial skin in the game, the more they pay, the more they pay attention, right? And so I had all these people saying, Darren, listen, you don't have an MBA, you don't have a PhD, you never went to college, never university. The chances of you getting onto a paid advisory board or paid board of directors is very slim to none. So, it's great to have that fantasy, great to have wishful thinking, but the practicality is it's very slim, Darren. I don't want to disappoint you. And I had many people tell me this. Darren, it's great fantasy, great dream, but unrealistic. And I just like, no. So in 2013, I got a telephone call from a wealthy family here in Canada that I've known for many, many years. And they said, hey, we're in the discovery process of looking at this startup residential real estate company. We know the founder. He's an entrepreneur. We've been involved with him in other projects that we've been involved with. Would you fly back from Vancouver, Canada to Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada at your own financial expense and be part of our team and volunteer time? Now, some of my friends are thinking, wait a second here. Why doesn't this wealthy family pay for all your travel expenses? That's ridiculous. They're using you. They're taking advantage of you. They should be front on your cost of your hotels and all that stuff. I'm thinking, so my mindset, I'm thinking, be in the conversation, get a seat at the table, right? I just want to be in a network of conversations to see what they're doing and how they do it. How do they structure opportunities? What's their systems? What's their processes? What's their reporting? What's their accountabilities? What's their responsibilities? What are they doing? How do they look at these opportunities? How do they decide to invest? Do they use their own money or other people's money? So I spent about 7 months volunteering my time going back and forth with this family. And after that period of time, they came to me and said, Darren, we need to make a decision. What's your thoughts based on the discovery and the due diligence process? What do you think about this? And I said, I really love this guy, Glenn, the founder of eXp. This is phenomenal. He's a licensed real estate agent for a long time. He's a top producing agent. He lives and breathes. He's been in commission sales. He understands the markets and the peaks and valleys of going through that, building a real estate career. He's not some guy coming out of Harvard or Stanford with an MBA and says, I'm going to run and build a real estate company. He's actually been in the trenches as a commission salesperson. And I said, I totally backed this guy and got this guy's back. I don't quite understand not having a bricks and mortar building back in 2013, right? It's over a decade ago. But so the thing is, I said, yes. So they said, okay, great. We're going to look at investing. Would you consider being the first independent board of directors member? Now, we can't pay you, but we're going to give you an equity position in this company. And there'll be you, the founder, and the CEO of the company, the three of you, and you'll meet. I said, well, before I say yes, I don't want to be a conflict of interest. I want to be in integrity because I have a number of corporate training clients all over North America that are competitors to the eXp real estate company. All the top brands, I do corporate training for them. So I call up all these companies, all these brokers, all these franchise owners, all these top producing people, and everybody's telling me, Darren, do not get involved in this company in 2013. Listen, this company's going nowhere fast. It's going to be a zero, not a hero. These guys that come and want to set these real estate companies are a dime a dozen. Darren, this is going to put a black eye on your corporate training business that you've taken so long to build, and all these people. So I'm like stressed, right? I'm in North Vancouver, British Columbia at the time, and I'm living in Deep Cove, and I thought, I got to go for a walk. So I go to Rice Lake in North Vancouver, British Columbia. I go for a walk, and I thought to myself, wait a second. After I cleared my head being out in nature, I said, wait a second. All these people across North America are all giving me advice not to get involved in this opportunity. But why would this wealthy family spend all this time and money and energy and resources, spending months on discovery and due diligence, and they're writing a significant financial check and putting skin in the game? Nobody else is writing a check. Why don't I just follow the money? Because this family's not going to screw up, and this family's a very affluent family. They're not going to screw up and just blow money. They've done their homework on due diligence. So I called the family and said, I'm in. So we had lots of big goals and dreams with that company. We took it from as a team, a small startup residential real estate company, to build it to a company with 90,000 agents in 24 countries on 5 continents, which is now a multi-billion-dollar company. And I tell you, we had many people. So I used to get people in 2015, 2016 would send me a text message or an email or a phone call. Hey, Darren, you keep talking about this real estate company. I see you on your social media. You keep talking about when you're doing core training seminars. Darren, I know lots of real estate agents in my city. I've never met one of your agents. In fact, Darren, if you came to where I live and drove around my neighborhood, you wouldn't even see one of your real estate signs in our neighborhood. There's all these other companies. But you keep telling this is you're growing and you're going to get to this many agents. You're growing. Darren, listen, stop drinking the Kool-Aid. It's not happening, man. Like stop embellishing and exaggerating things. It's getting ridiculous. And I wasn't embellishing or exaggerating. We were growing and developing. If people do their research and they see how far we grew, we weren't exaggerating and embellishing things. We were making things happen and producing results. But people couldn't believe it. They couldn't wrap their head around, here we are, a company with no physical bricks and mortar, a technology company selling real estate, doing what we're doing. And we, as you see, we became one of the fastest growing real estate companies in the world for residential real estate. So we changed things. And in 2018, we went to NASDAQ in New York City. Boy, did I ever get criticism, feedback from that. Oh, sure you are. Sure you are, Darren. You're going to do an uplist to NASDAQ. Yeah, sure you guys are. You guys had no money. You're building airplanes, you're flying it. So we do an uplist to NASDAQ on our first day of trading, do over $1 billion market cap on NASDAQ. And then all of a sudden, people are starting to turn their heads, right? Because things go through 3 stages. First of all, it's ridiculed. Step number 1. Then it's opposed. Step number 2. And then step number 3 is it's served as self-evident. And then in 2018, I thought, okay, now people are starting to believe me. And then we just took off even just during COVID and where we are today and stuff. So it's been an incredible ride with a lot of scars on our back. We had a lot of haters, a lot of critics, a lot of skeptics, because people didn't believe us because we were going to disrupt and change the real estate model and do what was right for agents and brokers. And, in the early days, people were saying, you're never going to, Darren, this is not going to work. I'm like, why? Darren, listen, these other big brands have deep financial pockets and have been around for decades with brand recognition. Some of these companies that are your competitors are household names across North America, and nobody knows of your name. And that's what I used to get all the times. So now people are like, oh my gosh, this company, but they don't see the early days.
When I came over to eXp back 4.5 years ago, I was at Remax. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the old guard friends that I had there, they're like, oh, Jason, you're making a mistake, right? And they always talk about the brand power.
Yes.
And I did my due diligence. It took me 14 months before I made the leap. I mean, I should have done it a lot sooner. Obviously, no one
Everybody says that. Everybody says I should have done it sooner.
But I did my due diligence, right? I pretty much looked at everything else before I finally was like, okay, I'm really going to look at this and made the move. But I kept coming to the same conclusion. I'm like, this value proposition is second to none. There's nothing that's even remotely close. Like the fact that I can go from 1 income line to now 3 income lines, the scalability that I have, I'm like, this is real. And then I thought about it too. It's like the brand power of the brand that I was at. I was like, I didn't use it because I built my own brand because I always believe that your own brand is smarter as a real estate agent. It's something you actually own. So it didn't even make sense to me. So after I did all my due diligence and I really looked at this, I said, there's no reason that we wouldn't do this. So I was in, but then I was like, I can't make this decision. I brought it to my team and it was unanimous. Every single member of the team said, we need to do this. And so we made the leap, and best decision we ever made. I mean, we've built a global organization now, 3XP, with just shy of 500 agents, and I use that as a pension plan for, funding our team and the things that we do and helping people build an exit strategy. The stock has been an incredible blessing. I mean, I thought, hey, cool, if I can, get some stock and I get a little 10% discount, cool. But it's done way better than I could have imagined since I've been here. So that's been very viable. And then more importantly, it's the culture, like it's being around the proximity of like these really high performing leaders, people like myself and people at higher levels, but we're all collaborating, sharing ideas and working together. Glenn has been like, I got the pleasure during COVID of interviewing Glenn, and he was like, hey, yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. This guy's a billionaire. He, could have looked down on me and said, I'm not going to make time for you. He never treated me that way.
Very approachable.
Right. And I see this. Absolutely yourself, right? When my team reached out and you said, hey, yeah, I'd absolutely like to do that. Yeah. And it just goes to show the culture. So paint the picture, Darren. Where do you think 5 years from now based on what you know, because you're intimately involved with the board, right? Like you see the inner workings of what's going on here at eXp. 5 years from now, paint the picture. Where do you think we're going to be?
Yeah, so there's some stuff that we're working on behind the scenes I can't discuss publicly, but artificial intelligence will play a major role. We're seeing aging population here in North America, baby boomers and men and women, and a lot of people aging out, right, towards retirement and age their agents have been around. Let's call it the traditional franchise real estate bricks and mortar industry. So we're going to see in the next 10 years a major transition, a major disruption, a major change. We have a young generation coming up that's very technologically advanced. They want to use AI. At the end of the day, we're in the people business, and people buy from people they know, they like, and they trust. People always ask, hey, can Amazon sell homes and stuff like that? Maybe they might get into business, but you got to remember, most traditional accounting, most real estate companies are run by two people, accountants and lawyers for compliance. And if you look at accountants and lawyers, their personality styles, the majority of them, they don't like change, right? They like consistency. They like the same old, been doing this for decades or doing this for years. So I think we're going to see a disruption and change. We're going to see companies come and go. Like there's a lot of, we have a lot of competitors now in our space, and we'll see companies come and go so a couple things. One is for me is I'm a big person on integrity. And I believe that without integrity, nothing works. And I also believe that time will either promote you or time will expose you. It's just a matter of time. So I'm about doing things right and building a strong foundation, a strong structure, so that if times are challenging, right, like in market conditions, because you have a strong foundation, a strong culture built on principles of integrity, transparency, collaboration, right, disclosure, things like that, then what happens is people buy in and there's an attraction and retention to that model, right? And I think that some companies that have been around, they're very transactional but not relational. And at the end of the day, we're in the people business. So, people can get into the whole thing about the stock and the numbers and the balance sheet and all that kind of stuff, right? I look at the human beings that are involved, and human beings buy, sell from other human beings. And you're making a big financial purchase. Some people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars buying a single family home. Sometimes it's the biggest investment or biggest purchase they'll ever make in their entire lives. And I see people get scared making a purchase on Amazon of thinking, oh my gosh, should I do this? Or I see people walking around Walmart thinking, oh, should I buy this? Should I do this? Or even somebody getting their oil changed thinking, okay, do I do, and I see this stress sometimes on people at the mechanic shop. And that's a small investment, right? And 78% of the North American population live paycheck to paycheck. So the thing is, they're making decisions, but they don't want to take a risk that's going to go bad for them because it could cause them bankruptcy. So I look at a lot of factors of the ecosystem of human beings, and I look at how people are slow to change, how people are early adapters, all that kind of stuff. But I think over the next 5-10 years, I think we're going to still have people buying, selling, investing in real estate, dealing with licensed real estate agents, from my opinion only, because we buy, like sometimes, like, when you made your switch from Remax to eXp, there's some people who think you're still with Remax to this day because they don't pay attention to that. It doesn't matter to them. They don't care because they got the relationship with you, not with the brand or the real estate company. Right? Yeah. In fact, some people, if you tell me you're with eXp, they don't even care. They're like, hey, I could care less who you're with. Just sell my house. Give me the best price. Give me a good deal. Right? It's because you've got the relationship equity with them. They get to know you and like you and trust you. So I think that over time, we're going to see a lot of changes, maybe consolidation. We're going to see some companies come and go. But at the end of the day, you're going to see human beings buying, selling, and investing with other human beings because it's so important, because it's relational, not transactional. And as human beings, we want to be relational. We want to be connected with other people, especially when you're making a big financial decision. You're sitting there doing something to buy a house, and all of a sudden the computer crashes, and or you got to make a big decision of being talked off the ledge, or you're having a dispute with your spouse or partner or something or other. There's so many factors and variables that play into it. But I think that from a perspective of being a licensed real estate agent, I see a tremendous amount of opportunity, because a lot of people who are baby boomers want to downsize their homes, because as they get older, they don't want to go up and down stairs. They don't want to do landscaping or yard work, right? Sometimes they want a vacation or spend time with their grandkids, or they want to travel. So they want to be able to go away where somebody else is looking after the yard work, or they don't have to, for security purposes, they want to be in a condominium or apartment building. So I see a lot of changes with inventory and real estate happening over the next 10 years. And I see a lot of opportunities for a lot of immigration coming into Canada as well, and the United States, right? Because we have an aging population here. So these people got to live someplace. and they all got to work, and they need opportunities to buy some homes to live that dream, so they can then sponsor other family members over the next 5-10 years to come over here, and their parents come over here and take care of their grandkids while they're at work.
Love it. Hey, listen, one thing that I think that we maybe touched on, but I want to finish on this. I'm reading your shirt. It says #humanitarian.
Humanitarian.
I
Yes.
am listening to a theme where you had relationships that you poured into and constantly put yourself in rooms. What would be your advice to people listening right now around, your viewpoint on relationships in general?
Yeah. Key thing is focus on biggest thing that I've learned. Some of the biggest mistakes that I've made with relationships is not keeping my word. And today my word is my world. So if, like, for example, if I had an action step, I had to, like, if you and I were working on something right now on this call and I have to get you something later today, I would not only write it down on paper, but I would actually put an alarm in my phone that would also do an audible alarm to remind me. So the key thing is broken promises is so important. Be your word. See, most people in life, their words have no power, because for a lot of people, you hear in business the word talk is cheap. People say, talk is cheap. I think most people cheapen their talk because their words have no power. They say things that come out of their mouth, but they don't follow through. And then people don't believe them, right? We always get these people that call us that are in some new business opportunity. A few times a year, they're always in some new business opportunity, changing companies. And they're not consistent, they're not reliable, and you don't trust them. And so I think when it comes to relationships, it's very important that you be your word. Early to me is on time, and on time is late, because it shows a sign of disrespect. And so the key thing is keeping your word and then going deep in those relationships and building value and becoming relational, not transactional. So becoming a go-giver, not a go-getter. And finding ways. Zig Ziglar said many years ago, he said, if you help enough people get what they want in their lives, you get everything you want in your life. So being the go-giver, building that relationship equity, checking in on people. I'm consistently checking in. I have a large network of people around the world, maybe more than most people, but I'm consistently sending text messages, phone calls, emails, find out how people are doing. Right? There's a big mental health crisis going on right now. And that's why with the humanitarian shirts, I created an international foundation with Tatiana, Love My Life, but we also created something that we have a lot of real estate agents come on. It's called E2E, Elevate to Educate. People can go to hikingfundraiser.com and learn about it. We bring people out hiking to get people into nature, because if you walk around and you see a lot of people today, they're not present. They're walking around, they're having a conversation with you, but they're not present. They're not in their body. They're not grounded. They're thinking of what they got to do next. They're distracted. They got so many things they're thinking. It's kind of like a computer. They got all these windows or all these tabs open up in their brain. And all these tabs are open up in their brain. And they don't close out all those windows and just be focused with you and present with you in the moment. That's why I love taking people out on E2E, Elevate to Educate with the hiking fundraisers, is people come out and I'm like, hey, do you hear the birds? They don't hear any birds. Do you see the different colors in nature? They don't see any colors in nature because they're so busy being busy in their heads. And then after a couple hours, I ground them and I get them to reset and refocus and re-energize nature. Like, oh my gosh, did you see the squirrel? Do you see the birds? Do you see the different colors of the flowers, the trees, the leaves? I'm like, yeah, we talked about that a couple hours ago, but you didn't even hear me, right? And I always say to people, when you're fully present in your body, how does that show up in business? When somebody's thinking about giving you referrals or an endorsement or a recommendation or promoting you or inviting you to a dinner party, right? How does that show up in your life in terms of relationships? So I spend a lot of time in nature. I hike almost every day of my life, and it's structured my calendar. So it grounds me and I'm present, because then I can bring more to building an authentic, vulnerable, connected, transparent relationship with other people.
Love that.
Yeah.
Darren, I have a book. It's funny you mentioned the word this is my number one book that I recommend to people. It's called The Go-Giver.
Great book by Bob Berg. Bob's a friend of mine.
Yeah, Bob Berg. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Bob as well. And
great guy.
Great book. What's the one book, if you had one book that you could recommend to people, what would it be?
A great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Classic book. This book here is, it's a little plug for myself. This book here, if you've not read it, it's less than 100 pages. But I wrote this book. So this book came out. So for 30 years, I've had private journals. Every day I journal in my life. And Tatiana, my partner, she's got a master's degree in curriculum education. She was a high school teacher for 35 years, 3 academic degrees. So during the COVID-19 lockdown, Tatiana comes to me and she goes, I think you should write a book. I'm like, I have no interest in writing a book, because the story in my head is that I'm not good enough, not smart enough, who'd ever listen to me, right? And she goes, Darren, you've been keeping journals for 30 years of all these private conversations every day, of all these people you met, places you've went, seats and tables you've sat at, and things that people have poured into you over the years. And so we built a team of people, created this book. It's a very practical book, but it came out, it went global, all over the world. And people are like, why? Because of the authenticity, the vulnerability, but the practicality. Because one of my big challenges, Jason, growing up in special education, I would go to workshops and seminars and leave depressed, feel defeated, feel like a total failure, and go into my car and cry sometimes, just thinking, oh my gosh, I feel so. People leave motivated. I was completely opposite. I crashed. Because what happened was I would go into a seminar thinking, man, I just want to learn what the next steps are so I can pay my bills on time. So I can go from an R9 credit rating to having like an R1 credit rating. So I can just increase my credit limit on my card. So I can get food in my home and eat properly and have better health and nutrition rather than eating junk food because I can't afford it. Or being broke at times and having to go to a Chinese food buffet, all you can eat at 1:30, 2 o'clock, so I could get the lunch and the dinner and cheat the system because I was broke. And what I realized was when I go to these workshops and seminars is people get up on stage and talk about all their success. I couldn't relate to that. I'm just thinking, how do I survive? And I realized a lot of people, they can relate more to my adversities, my failures, my challenges, me being not good enough or smart enough that I can't say and ring the bell at NASDAQ, becoming a millionaire or doing all these big things. People can't relate to that. But they can relate when it's like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling in my job or my career. I get emotional because I can feel one thing about my life today is I can walk around, like even at Christmas time, it's hard for me to go into a store because I can go around the grocery stores, I can go around the department stores, and I can feel the stress of people financially. I can see the dad walking around thinking, taking his kids around, looking at all the Christmas lights and all that stuff, thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I could just buy these things for my kids, but man, we can't afford it, right? And I just feel the pain, financial pain of a lot of people. And that's why, humanitarian or philanthropy is driven for me, because I just really believe that my success is someone else's miracle. Because I know what it's like in my life. I know what it's like to be 3 months behind on your bills. I know what it's like to thinking, geez, tomorrow they're going to come change the locks on the door. And where am I going to live, right? Like being so financially broke that I go to declare personal bankruptcy, and they look through all my collection notices and all of my out of integrities, and then they hand it back to me and said, Darren, it's going to cost you $1,500 to pay for all the fees to go bankrupt. I'm like, well, I don't have $1,500. Let's make a payment plan. No, we don't do a payment plan. Who can you call right now? I can't call anybody because all those phone calls have been made. They won't take my phone calls. They won't return my phone calls because I'm so out of integrity because I know owe them all money. Right? Being so broke that you get your car repossessed because you're a nice guy because you co-sign over to guys for business. And so I've been through all that. I've been to where it's like, man, today I'm just going to end my life. I don't want to wake up tomorrow. I don't want to wake up. I've had those days where I'm like, in my past, I don't want to wake up. I'm in so much pain. I don't want to wake up. I'm in so much stress. I don't want to answer that phone because it's another collection agency calling me. I don't want to go to the mailbox and get my mail because it's another collection notice in the mail. Right? I've had those days, right, where I've had all that stuff. And yeah, I've created a lot of financial success today through a lot of pain because I didn't want to have that pain anymore. Where I said enough is enough because I had a big turning point in my life, Jason. I realized one day, it was about 39, 40 years of age, nobody's coming to rescue me. I always thought that maybe somebody would come rescue me. The government will rescue me, my relatives, my neighbors, my parents, the loved ones. Somebody's going to come rescue me. Man, what? I'm hanging around these wealthy people, man. Why doesn't the guy just write me a check for $100,000? It ain't going to change his life, but it'll change my life. Just write me, like, man, just give me hey, anything I can do for you? Yeah, just give me $100,000, man. You're worth millions. Just give me $100,000. It will change my life. $100,000 to you is like jet fuel for your company, like your private jet you got. $100,000 is nothing. You'll spend it on a month in jet fuel. And I'd be resentful and upset with people all the time. And I realized, oh my gosh, if I just changed my life. And so a lot of my heart today is driven by philanthropy and delivering to build financial wealth, but to give it all away. Today I've committed over the next decade $100 million towards global philanthropy.
Wow.
Right? It's a big goal. It's a big accountability, a big responsibility. But we want to do that to serve humanity, to solve problems. Because when I was a young boy in my early 20s, and I talk about one of my mentors in my book, this guy I met on the side of the road. I was on welfare, and I was selling watermelon on the side of the road for a farmer because I had to eat, and I had no food. So I was getting watermelon and cantaloupe, but I had to eat. So I'm selling watermelon for the farmer, and I'm going to the farmer's markets. Guy pulls up in a Lincoln town car, gets out, comes by some watermelon and cantaloupe from me, then comes back the next day. This goes on for about 4 days. And after about 4 days, I realized why is this guy buying all this watermelon and cantaloupe? And I noticed that he had a bill full of cash and he had 5 $1,000 Canadian bills. I'd never seen a $1,000 bill anymore. They don't have them anymore. But I thought to myself, what does this guy do? Is he a drug dealer? Like how does this guy live? Like, how can you have 5 $1,000 bills? So I ended up asking if I could meet with the guy. And the guy actually met with me at a coffee shop. I borrowed a friend's vehicle because my car got repossessed, and I borrowed $20 from my friend because I had no money. And I went to the coffee shop, met this guy, I brought a journal, and I asked the guy if I could start taking notes. And the guy's like, this is kind of weird. Meet me at a coffee shop, the guy selling watermelon on the side of the road. This guy's a watermelon farmer, and now he wants to take notes from me. This man ended up becoming one of my mentors. He had a grade 3 formal education, and he lived off his money's interest. Think about that from wealth, generational wealth, living off your money's interest. Wow. It's a whole other level. Your money's interest. And I believe the interest was $5 million a year. So I have no idea what the principal was, but the interest was $5 million a year. And he owned over 4,000 real estate properties. Okay. I was with him until the day he died. I went with him one day to a park. He opened up an old leather briefcase. He had me go around that town and gather up all these newspapers. And we sat there one day. He said, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And he said to me, he said, I know you're financially broke right now and you're on welfare. He said, we're going to give away $1 million today. I think it was $1 million we give away. And this guy wrote checks to all these different organizations. So it was $100,000, so $100,000. $100,000 to give away that day. But I've seen him give away $1 million. And he just anonymously wrote checks to all these people that were in need, nonprofits, people in the community. And he says, there's one rule that we have between you and I. I said, what? He goes, you can't tell anybody it came from us. And we used we mailed out these letters with a stamp, and we used the return address as the city hall. And it was a numbered company. And I saw this man write $100,000 in checks that day, people anonymously. And he goes, I never want you to tell anybody where these checks go, but I want you to be in a position someday that you can do this, Darren. That you can be anonymous, you can do things around the world, and you can serve people because your success someday will become somebody's miracle. You think about that. Your success will become somebody's miracle, right? I have a friend this morning I was talking to who does very, very well in his life. He's providing a lot of meals to people in need right now. And people say, why would you do that? Because he can. And I get emotional. It's funny. I never thought I was going to get emotional. But the thing is it's success is something, everybody saying, I want to become more successful. Success is not something you go out in the world to pursue. A lot of people think if I climb the corporate ladder, be corporate America, get this prestigious job. I've had friends of mine that are lawyers that, man, I'm going to work for one of the big law firms or big accounting firms, and I'm going to have that window and be high up in the building. They're unfulfilled. They're not happy. Success is not something you go out in the world to pursue. Success is something you attract into your life by the person that you become. So the focus is becoming an attractive person, right? I one time was in Vancouver, down at the Vancouver Convention Center, and I was going to the Cactus Club to meet a gentleman for lunch. And I walked by this guy, he's homeless. And I've been homeless, so I can relate to him, right? And I see this guy, and he says, excuse me, sir. He says, can you spare me some change? I said, how much do you need? He goes, I need 25 cents. And I said, what are you going to get? What are you going to do with 25 cents? He goes, I'm trying to collect enough money to get in the hostel tonight in downtown Vancouver. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how many people do you got to talk to at 25-cent increments to get enough money to pay for a hostel? So I said to the guy, I said, listen, I was once homeless. Are you open to some feedback? He's like, what? I said, listen, I'm going to the Cactus Club. I'll be there for about 90 minutes. I'll buy you a salad, something healthy. I'll come back in 90 minutes, but I have an exercise for you. I have a challenge for you. And you can accept, decline, or counteroffer the challenge. Do you accept, decline, or counteroffer? Because I accept it. I said, here's what I want you to do. If you change your ask, you will change your results. If you change your ask, you will change your results. Okay? If you change your ask, you'll change your results. I learned this from a lot of adversity. Okay? A lot when I was up and down financially. If you change your ask, you change your results. I said, everybody that's walking by you right now, you're asking for spare change. You're asking for 25 cents. It's a long road to get to your destination, to get to the hostel. Everybody that walks by you from this point on for the next 90 minutes, I want you to ask them for $100. You change your ask, change your results. He looks at me and goes, sir, you're crazy. I said, listen, you're getting rejected at 25 cents. you might as well get rejected $100 because they're rejecting you at spare change at 25 cents. So I go to the Cactus Club. 90 minutes later, I come out of the Cactus Club. I see the guy. He's looking both ways, left and right, sitting on the street, right, with his sign. He sees me. He stands up, and I thought, no, I don't want him to hug me because he hasn't showered for days. And I know that smells like, and I was formally dressed up meeting with somebody, a business person. I come running over to him. I have a salad. He goes, Mister, you wouldn't believe what happened. He'd raised $76. $76.25 in 90 minutes. And the point of this is if you change your ask, you change your results. And the key thing is about making requests. And I talk about it until I become is you want to start making requests. Two things. One is, what is your personal promises? So some people call them goals. I call them, what are your personal promises? So in 2024, what is your top 10 personal promises that you're going to commit to your life? You're going to give your word that you're going to achieve these personal professional promises in your life. It could be releasing weight. It could be saving, investing money. It could be moving. It could be getting into a relationship. It could be setting up a business. It could be asking for a raise or promotion. It could be taking your kids on to Disneyland, whatever it is. But what's your top 10 personal promises? So then you have your promises. Then, as I always talk about, all we are is a network of conversations. As human beings, we're a network of conversations. What you start doing is you start making requests to people. Hey, would it be okay if I make a request? So next time you're in a restaurant, Jason, and the server brings over the bill, say, excuse me, ma'am, can I ask you a question? Yes. Would it be okay if I make a request? Sure. Who do you know right now is looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Who do you know is looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Well, I don't have nobody come top of mind. Listen, if I could show you a way to save money on gas, would you be interested? Sure. Listen, I pay a $50 gift card for every person who refers me a lead that closes, and I give you a gas card at your gas station of your choice. So if, when you're serving here, you're the Uber driver and you just refer me a couple people to buy homes, I'll give you a $50 gift card every time somebody buys gas. And you know what? Over the next few months, you can probably start getting your gas paid every month in your vehicle. Or I'll give you a $50 gift certificate for a restaurant of your choice or a grocery store of your choice. And, you can just refer me people and I'd just be happy to do that for you. And you'd be amazed because now it's win-win. It's a fair means of exchange. You'd be amazed that hair salon driver, that Uber driver, that guy that's the landscaper that's doing everybody's yards, that's talking to the neighbor and talking to the homeowner, like, yeah, I'm thinking about selling my house. Oh, wow, who do you got? A real estate agent. Oh, I'll introduce you to somebody. And now you've got this army of people through a network of conversations out there lead generating for you. And so what I did with corporate training for many years is I had the FedEx, UPS, and DHL drivers and Loomis drivers refer me business all the time. Hey, Darren, I was just talking to Mary. She's the executive assistant for XYZ company, and they're going to be doing a major layoff, and the morale is going to go down big time. And if you go talk to Mary, she's the executive assistant, tell her I sent you, because I just dropped off a bunch of FedEx packages at the office, and she was telling me an inside scoop of what's going on. I had a lot of FedEx, UPS, DHL drivers source me a lot of contacts and a lot of data points of information all the time that was going on in corporations, because they're always meeting the gatekeepers and the ones who are protecting the decision makers. Because the gatekeepers, the executive assistants, are the ones that are signing for the documents for the CEOs and the executives and the decision makers. So I had a whole bunch of UPS, DHL, Loomis courier drivers, and I would bring them out to dinner parties. And even if they didn't show up, they appreciated the invitation. Whenever Loomis drivers and DHL drivers come to my house, I always give them a bottle of water. Hey, I know you're really busy. Would you like a bottle of water? Would you like some snacks? Would you like a granola bar? I always do that because they're always busy because they're under the crunch of time. And they're like, and you think, oh, why do you give a bottle of water? You'd be amazed when you're a FedEx driver, UPS driver, that little thing of a bottle of water from having to stop at a convenience store and that extra 5, 10, 15 minutes to do that, how it affects their route of delivery because they're being GPS on everything they do. It's these little things to build relationships with people about being a go-giver, not a go-getter.
Darren, first off, I bless you, man. Like you've been so transparent in this interview, like so vulnerable and like given so much knowledge. I've got a bunch of notes. I just want to thank you for making time today. I look forward to actually seeing you at some of these conferences in person. I'm going to definitely come up and spend some time with you and just pick more of your brain. I really appreciate today. So thank you so much for your time, Darren. Guys, if you guys got some value from this call, which I know you did, make sure you're commenting, right? If you have questions, put them in the chat. Darren is the type of guy, I'm sure, that if we just reached out to him with questions, he'd make time because a lot of people have made time for him over his life. And Dude, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go give back to other people myself right now. You've inspired me to go give in a bigger way. I think we have a lot of similar core values, and thank you so much.
Grateful
God
to be
bless you,
here.
man. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much as well.
Thanks, Darren. Cheers.